I believe we're having some technical difficulties.
You're not wrong.
I'm a clone of a clone.
And I will be again.
Good afternoon, folks. Welcome back to the Fan Batch. I'm Andy, and always joined by my band of brothers here. We got Wes Arscott and Hank
Sir.
McLaughlin.
What's going on?
I'm here to laugh and cry and everything in between with you guys because, man,
This one
Yeah,
hits.
this one. Yeah.
Well, this one like primes you for a hit, but it's dropped as one. So, really,
that was an entire emotional roller coaster this week. And I said to you guys in our private chat, since we started doing the double coverage of covering both shows, because I've been focused primarily on The Mandalorian, I've been watching the Bad Batch episodes sort of second and focusing on The Mandalorian. Did I not switch my freaking watch order? And it ruined my week. I'm not even kidding. Not even in the slightest. It was incredibly difficult. I don't know how you guys felt this week, because literally between the two shows, and I don't want to cross-pollinate too much, there was such an emotional roller coaster that, given the big crunch of the Bad Batch, it made it really difficult for me to focus and write because I was so emotionally overcome with what had happened.
Yeah. It's real tough not to cross-pollinate when they do, right? So
yeah.
But I did the exact, for whatever reason, maybe it was because the Mandalorian episode was mine this week.
Maybe
I always and sometimes Lauren's like, come on. But I always watch the Bad Batch first, like the matinee, like the cartoon before the feature.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah.
And this week I didn't. And so I'm in the exact same boat as you. I was like, woo!
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, why didn't I watch the Mandalorian second? So at least I could have left on the high note,
right? Batch late, so I was staying away from spoilers and stuff.
Oh, and, good stuff.
Yeah. I did watch Bad Batch first. So
you did, eh?
I got my little bump from Mandalorian afterwards.
I remember we were talking earlier this week, and we were asking each other if we had seen it, as we have our private group chat, how we kind of coordinate sort of the beats for the episode. And Andy, you had said, saw it, gonna need a minute.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Oh, we've had lots of minutes. We had the rest of the week to ruminate on it, and here we are. Okay, I guess.
Well, before we just drown everything in sorrow,
sure. Oh, okay, yeah. Hang on a second. Let me get the key here. Okay, here. Hang on. Now, get out here, you. Bad Star Wars jokes.
Okay, this one's a I don't know, good one, I guess. Comes from the internet.
Oh, it's a good Star Wars joke.
Well, maybe. We'll see.
All right.
Which ship is the godfather of all the others?
What ship is the godfather of all others?
I
gotta think about that for a second.
Don Corleone stuff.
Seriously,
I'm going deep on it, and I probably shouldn't be.
You're not far off, Hank.
Oh,
the Corleone. I don't know.
How about the Millennium Falcon?
The Millennium Falcon.
All around.
I dig it.
This has been another installment of
Bad Star Wars jokes. Now get back in your cage.
Yep. So without further ado, are we ready to dive into this part?
I don't know if I have enough. Well, at least the first half is okay. I don't think I need the box of tissue yet. But
not yet.
All right, take us away.
All righty. So here, our brand new layout this week.
Oh, I dig it.
Look at us.
So this episode originally aired Wednesday, March 29th, 2023. It's titled The Summit and has a listed runtime of 28 minutes with credits and titles, but it comes in at 23 minutes and 2 seconds without. This one is written by Matt Michinowitz, and that brings his tally up to 31 episodes.
Oh, wow.
And the director's chair this week belongs to Nate Villanova, bringing his episode up.
Cool.
His episode total up to 12. But oddly enough, there are now 2 IMDb pages for Mr. Villanova. One is listed under Nathaniel, and the other one is listed under Nate.
Interesting. And these are confirmed. It's the same guy, not like siblings or something.
I was thinking maybe like a father-son thing, but
that's possible too. I never thought about that.
No, like there's a lot of cross credits. So
all right,
maybe somebody just got impetuous and jumped on a new one.
Possibly, yeah.
The synopsis reads, an infiltration proves more challenging than expected.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yep. So we open on Pabu under moonlight, and inside the Havoc Marauder, we find Tech and Echo have no luck in tracking down the location of the Advanced Science Division base, where Crosshair is currently being held.
Another passage of time here. Look at Lower Pabu already
Starting to light
lit
back
up.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So they're
Many
Slow.
rotations.
Tech goes on to say that he's come up with virtually nothing on Dr. Hemlock, and for all intents and purposes, he's a ghost. But Echo interjects that through his contacts, he's found out that Dr. Hemlock will attend a summit in 2 cycles at Tarkin's compound on Iriadu. And with an infiltration mission, they can plant a tracker on Hemlock's ship and follow him back to his base. And Crosshair, says Omega.
Any thoughts to who his contact is?
Don't know.
Oh,
But they do say they built a network inside and outside of
in
the
and
Empire.
out.
And Cody booked, or do you think he went back to work?
That's interesting. I don't think so. I mean,
think
with
Cody's going to show up next season.
I do think Cody's in the wind somewhere, probably loosely connected to Rex and whatever's going on with that. But I mean, we could take a page out of Andor. I mean, could this be like connections to like characters like Luthen Rail?
Maybe.
Who's got a guy on the inside in the ISB?
It could be.
Something like that, maybe.
It wouldn't shock me if they all cross paths.
I think at some point there's going to be like,
considering what cross paths today.
Yeah. Well,
we're starting to weave some more galaxy stuff.
We're going to have like a major eclipse where everything just kind of lines.
Yeah.
Star Wars overload.
But Hunter doesn't think it'll be that easy, as they'd be at a tactical disadvantage. But Tech chimes in that even though they haven't agreed with his choices, Crosshair is still their brother, and they don't leave their own behind. Omega chimes in again. If there's any chance, we have to take it.
Very, an aggressive sort of stance to take, given the history over the course of season 1.
Yeah, like everybody is just, it's Crosshair. He's our brother. He's turned on the Empire. Let's go get him.
It's amazing how quickly they are to forgive.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those, I guess, the dichotomy of being a family, I suppose.
Yeah. Black sheep of the family, still family.
Yeah, that's true.
So our first Easter egg here, Iriadu, homeworld of Grand Moff Wilhuff Tarkin. Located in the Seswena sector in the Outer Rim, Iriadu's chief industry and export revolved around Lomite ore. It was originally mentioned in the West End Games Star Wars Legends Imperial Source book in 1989.
Such a good book.
But it made a first canon appearance in the 2014 novel Tarkin by James Luceno.
That's an early 2014. That's an early novel too. Early new canon novel, I should say.
Yeah. Yes.
So nice little drop there. Hunter asks if they should wait for reinforcements, but Echo thinks they're a small enough team to get in and out without getting noticed, but they'll have to move quickly. And with a plan in place, Hunter's on board. Later on, as the batch are loading up some gear, Fee is back, finally. And Omega runs over to greet her, and she asks where they're heading off to. And Omega relays it's a covert mission. But Fee tells her she wants details when they get back, and Omega rushes off to the ship. As she runs up the ramp, Tech stands next to the ship running some calculations on his data pad, and Fee walks up and asks, were they going to leave without saying goodbye? And he replies as Tech only can, that is correct.
There's the hesitation when he goes to get on the ship.
There is. This whole scene, he's like...
Do you think he regrets not saying anything?
I believe so.
I think so as well.
Not anymore.
Well,
right now he does. So I feel real... I don't know how I feel. I feel weird because in the chat, while I was watching this, I went, oh no. And I said it to you. I said it to both of you in the chat. I'd come to it late, but I was like, oh, just because of how long it took that scene.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
they really dwell on
pause
it
between it. And yeah, absolutely.
The long setup to something bad's about to happen. I got some bad mojo.
Yeah. I was like, I didn't want to see through that scene.
Yeah.
But Fee, she crosses her arms and gives Tech a really pouty look. And looking up from his data pad, he awkwardly asks if Fee needs a briefing. But she tells him that when two friends are talking, it's called a conversation. And then she goes on to tell him, don't go running off with any pirates or smugglers when they're gone. And Tech blurts out, yes, this mission shouldn't involve either. But Fee, she pushes the data pad down and tells him that's not exactly what she was getting at.
Not what I meant there, big guy.
Yeah, and adjusting his goggles, Fee chuckles, and then she tells him, see you around, brown eyes. And she walks away. But Tech, he pauses a moment, processing the conversation, and then he jumps on the Marauder.
And that's where I was like, do you think, I think he kind of like, there
was something else
2 seconds too late. I just realized what was happening there. And now I don't know how to go back. And I was literally watching the TV and I was like, no, turn around. She's still there. She's still there.
Yeah.
And then he didn't.
He pauses, doesn't look back. She at least looks back.
Yeah. She doesn't. Well, she does look back, but only as the Marauder is lifting off, jetting off into space.
He just has that moment of hesitation where he's getting on board and he stops, and then keeps going. You're like, no, turn around, you're missing the girl.
So maybe she just was honestly into him.
I kind of think she was now.
Yeah. I don't think she's the turncoat, that we thought
we originally thought she was. Yeah,
based on what we learned next episode. My opinion of her has changed again. So over Eriadu, we see a couple Star Destroyers in high orbit, and a third arrives out of hyperspace, and a shuttle flanked by 3 V-Wings drops out and approaches the planet. On the surface, we see them heading for Tarkin's compound, and the V-Wings flank off as the shuttle enters the mountainside hangar, where it lands next to 4 other identical shuttles. 2 shock troopers greet Dr. Hemlock as he departs his ship, and they inform Hemlock that Tarkin has been waiting for him. And then they enter further into the compound.
There's an interesting thing going on here. I know it comes up later in the second half in Plan 99, where we're starting to see the evolution of the Republic military infrastructure move towards what we recognize as classic Imperial.
Yeah.
And to see that the shock troopers are still in the new TK style armor, but they still have the color scheme of the Coruscant Guard, which were also shock troopers. Yeah. Right down to the clone style shoulder pauldron. Yeah.
At the top of the tower, the elevator door opens and Hemlock and the shock troopers exit, approaching a huge blast door. And one shock trooper activates the control panel and it slides open. Tarkin tells Hemlock he's late, but Hemlock says that there were some matters that required his attention as he takes a seat at the round table with 3 other officers. Tarkin studies Hemlock for a moment before he states, now that they're all here, they can finally begin. Meanwhile, the Havoc Marauder is still en route through hyperspace. And Tech has identified a spot to land where it would put them between or beyond sensor range. And we get a shot of the console, and there's a lot of Orabesh going on here.
Good for you for digging all that out of that.
Yeah, it's actually scrolling, but it's all
there. Yeah,
it's all functional. On the right, as it scrolls, it reads Eriadu, optional terrestrial, habitable, breathable biosphere, mix of land and water, vegetation sporadic, and then primary and I'm guessing terrain.
Probably terrain, yeah.
And then on the left, it's partially obscured by tech. But what we can read is Zing, Riadu, which I'm assuming is analyzing in Eriadu.
Oh, probably.
And then caution, triangulating, proximate location. So all stuff you would need for your landing.
Nice.
But Hunter asks how they're going to get past the cruisers, but Echo and Rex had acquired a code from one of their contacts. And from the backseat, Wrecker tells Echo, it's good to have him back, just like old times.
Yep.
They drop out of hyperspace right near the Star Destroyers, and Hunter tells Wrecker to man the tail gun just in case. Echo transmits the code, and Hunter tells him to be ready to run if it fails. But across the intercom, the Imperials relay that Vessel 1143 is cleared for approach. And they all breathe a sigh of relief as they head towards the planet.
Once again, we've missed the opportunity with Fly Casual.
Yes. We also missed the opportunity of it's an old code, but it checks out. So this one, there are some non-canon references for 1143.
Oh, yeah, sure.
First up is CT 1143 was Lieutenant Ozone, who died at the hands of Cham Syndulla shortly after executing Order 66 on Ryloth.
Poor dude.
Killing Jedi Master Eoth Koth.
Oh.
Next is Clone Commander 1143, aka Commander Kev of the 224th Infantry Combat Legion.
God, he looks just like Gree,
aka the Mud Jumpers.
Okay.
He served under Jedi Spencer Drat.
Oh.
And he would turn on his Jedi during Order 66, but failed to kill him. He was kept in command during the Imperial transition, but we would be killed in action around 3 ABY by his former Jedi commander.
Oh, okay.
So when you're Googling these, they do come up, but I do believe these are both original fan creations.
Oh, really?
So, they're out there to find and research, but
I
don't think they hold bearing on canon events.
The thing with Legends, like, I mean, if it's the old canon, what's now called Legends, we've seen it like in every show, since Clone Wars, really, or Rebels, more likely. The way that old nuggets of the lore are just pulled
slowly
forward and gently massaged. A lot of times they still look the same and contextually have the same sort of meaning.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Literally, Ahsoka in Rebels, just before she fights Vader, tells Ezra, "There's a lot of truth in Legends." Like, it's a line.
Exactly.
Meaning, and it's relevant again later in the Mandalorian. It happens again, actually.
Yeah. So descending through the clouds, past the mountains, they set the Marauder down on a narrow cliff out of range of the sensors, and the batch depart with the intention of getting in and out as quick as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Marching through what looks to be a pine forest, Omega asks what type of approach they'll be using. A side wind breach? And Tech tells her, well, it worked on Raxus. And the Raxus, that was back in season 1 when they had to rescue Senator Singh in episode 10.
That was one of my favorite episodes of that season.
Echo tells them that approach won't work here. The Imperials have changed their tactics since then. And Wrecker chuckles and says, thanks to us. But Echo tells him no tanks and no explosions this time. And Wrecker, he hangs his head and decides, fine, before they all continue along. Still high above the valley below, they come to a tree line where they spot a tower with a red sensor on it. And Echo scans the tower just as a train car goes zipping by, suspended from the track above. And through their macro binoculars, he and Hunter survey Tarkin's tower compound. Noting that the compound is heavily fortified, Echo notes that the weak point is the train cars. And if they can get over the sensor, they can hang from the train cars right into the base. Omega questions that they'd be hanging over an immense drop to the valley floor below, but Echo says it's the only way to get in unnoticed. And Hunter tells Tech to disable the sensor, but he advises against it as it would trigger a breach. Instead, he plans to disrupt the feed, buying them 30 seconds to get past the sensor and onto the train, but precision is key. They all look to Wrecker, but he says he can handle it. And with that, Echo passes Tech the magnetic cable gun. The descriptive audio guy, though, says it's Hunter passing the gun. But
it's okay. It happens all the time.
Well, it's going to happen here in a second, too, because Hunter watches the sensor and gives Tech the go-ahead signal. And the descriptive audio guy says it backwards again, saying that Echo gave the go-ahead signal.
Oh, interesting. Small detail here, and I find this interesting, especially if you've been watching our Weapons of Star Wars video series. We did an episode on the DC-17, the hand blaster.
Yeah.
With that cable attachment on there, it looks remarkably like the Tartakovsky version of that weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Just small detail, but I couldn't help it. It's very obvious when you know what you're looking at.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So where are we here? Tech rushes towards the edge of the cliff, launching the cable and swinging upward as it reels in, landing him on the top of the sensor. And then, really neat, he uses the magnetic cable gun to pry the panel off the side of the sensor.
Oh, that was cool.
And then he attaches his data pad to the panel and waits for the right moment to act. And meanwhile, the next train car is now speeding towards their location. Inside the compound, they've detected a malfunction in sensor 3811. But Lieutenant Mailer...
Did anybody else get flashbacks to Rebels with Ezra in the walker?
Yeah.
Mailu run?
Colonel Mailuron.
Yeah.
Mailuron.
But it's funny because we don't get his name until the credits. But
yeah.
Anyway, I added here. He tells the worker, just recycle the feed. And then with the sensor down, Tech calls the batch. It's time to go. They rush forward, launch their cables, and attach to the bottom of the passing train. And Tech leaps from the sensor and latches onto the back. little bit of foreshadowing there.
Yeah.
Inside the compound, Lieutenant Mailer asks if anything came back from the sensor reading, but the worker tells him no. So he says, run a full system diagnostic. And then we jump back to the train again, and Echo calls out that we're halfway there. And Wrecker notes, well, it's not so bad, until he looks down, realizing how high up they are. And he says, never mind, as the train glides towards the mountain compound.
And yet still just manages to hang on and just get the job done.
Yep. He's overcome his fear of heights, I think, as best he can. Nearing the train dock, we do see some stormtroopers out on patrol. And the Bad Batch, they quickly dismount from the train. Hunter taking out the first trooper hand to hand, tossing him over the rail.
Yeah.
The second trooper is dispatched with a well-placed blaster bolt, knocking him over the rail as well.
Yeah, enjoy the landing.
Not people anymore.
No.
And the third trooper emerges from the door, but he's caught off guard by a shot from the side, knocking him over the railing as well. So apparently railings don't save lives all the time.
No, I guess not. Nice.
Those are pretty low. I don't think those are code. It's the evolution of the Star Wars rail. It's only hip height.
That's right.
Till you get to the Death Star, then it's gone completely. But outside with the troopers dispatched, they make their way inside the compound. And at the top of Raven's Peak, the Imperials discuss the security of the galaxy and how best to maintain it. And this whole thing, yes, it seems clandestine and everything, but in the beginning moments here, it seems like a legit political, how are we going to make the galaxy safe?
Yeah. Yep.
But it shifts gears pretty quick. Hurst Ramodi suggests that maybe widespread military deployment was the way to go, but Governor Tarkin says they need a strategy for galactic unification. And then they turn the floor over to Dr. Hemlock, and he relays that the progress they are making in the field of cloning is of great importance to the Emperor. He postures that once they unlock the secrets formerly known to only the Kaminoans, they'll be able to have an enlightened society through their advanced technology and molecular alteration.
Well, that's pretty on the nose.
Yeah. So, hey, we're just going to make everybody enlightened.
That's right.
Tarkin demands to know how long it will take because the funding Hemlock has requested is already substantial. But Hemlock tells him science can't be rushed. But with more clone troopers being decommissioned, he's found a new purpose for them as test subjects for his research.
Yummy.
Ramodi questions if the decommissioned clones agreed to be experimented on, but Hemlock responds that clones are Imperial property and their cooperation is not required. Ramodi goes on that many in the Senate are currently fighting for clone rights, and if this got out, it could be detrimental to their goals. But spoken like an evil genius, Hemlock tells him that his location and operations are far from the eyes and ears of the Senate.
Yeah.
Admiral Barton Coburn interjects that having served with the clones and knowing they are loyal to the end, and they're willing to are they willing to just dismiss them out of hand? And Tarkin jumps in, citing he served with the clones as well, but he found them very unpredictable. But under Jedi leadership, the clones exhibited a concerning level of individuality.
Yeah, blame the Jedi.
Yeah. But Barton questions what happens if they learn what Hemlock is doing and take up arms against the Empire. And Hemlock quietly notes some already have. And Tarkin, he says, we'll deal with them swiftly to prevent any sort of clone uprising. Hint, hint. But Tarkin then he switches gears and asks Commander Orson Krennic on the status of Project Stardust. And satisfied with how his presentation was received, Hemlock sits back in his seat with a half grin. And I really dug the way they moved around the room and lit the scene.
Yeah.
Because it's like one of those meetings where all the high-level players are there, but they're all partially obscured.
Yeah, so. Kind of shadowy.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I was going to say it's kind of like, what's his name? Blofeld, but not really. Blofeld, they just never showed his head.
Yeah.
So if we've got Tarkin, who's like, even above Vader in terms of proximity to
the Emperor,
he'd be the commander in chief of the, he's
I would
of all the Imperial forces, I would think, right?
Yeah.
And so then we have Krennic, who we is a special science sort of division, like specifically the Death Star, and Hemlock is in charge of the cloning. Who are these other two that they're at the meeting?
Well, Ramodi is another callback, not only to Rogue One, but Ramodi is a late one. He's actually in A New Hope. He's in the room with all of the players, but they don't identify him until something like decades later in an EU source, but he is one of the major players at that table on the Death Star in A New Hope.
Yeah, just wondering what his sort of division is.
It's all good.
You got some more?
I got some more.
Oh, okay, cool.
Good.
A couple notes here, like you said, Hank. Project Stardust is actually better known as the Death Star Project, named as such because of key scientist Galen Erso, who called his daughter Jin Stardust.
That's right, yeah.
And then the players at the table.
Oh, there you go.
Along with returning Jimmy Simpson as Dr. Hemlock and Stephen Stanton as Governor Tarkin, we also have Ben Mendelsohn as Orson Krennic, Andy De La Tour as Hearst Ramodi, and D. Bradley Baker as Barton Coburn.
Oh, that's awesome.
So more roles for him.
You know what I like about this whole sequence? I like the fact that it establishes this whole scene in just a couple of lines adds so much more weight to Krennic when he's so outraged at Tarkin by the time we get to Rogue One, because now we know that Krennic has been involved, maybe not overseeing, but he's been involved in the Death Star project for 18 years.
Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely.
No wonder he's so put out when Tarkin's like, okay, I'm taking over.
Yeah, you did all the heavy lifting, now get out of the way. Yeah, so there's our players here. And like you said, further military connections for the other two.
Yeah, exactly.
In the hangar bay, though, we find the Bad Batch have found their way into the Imperial transport ships, and Omega asks how they're going to find out which one belongs to Hemlock. Hunter tells her that they'll have to access the hangar manifesto from the control room, so they opt to split into two teams. Hunter will take Tech and Echo, while Wrecker and Omega will remain to plant the beacon. They split up, Tech, Echo, and Hunter making their way up the ladder to the control room, and they stun two technicians and set to work. So, we're switching back and forth between kill shots and stuns.
Right.
Below on a
quickly discerning like a tech's not really
not a military threat.
Yeah.
Not really. Yeah. Interesting.
Don't kill the janitor type thing.
I guess. Don't shoot the civilian support staff.
Yeah.
In a uniform. I don't know.
That's a quick call. Like
it is. It's a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're kind of splitting hairs at that point, really.
True. Below on the top of a pile of crates, Wrecker and Omega survey the hangar as stormtroopers move skids of cargo about. And I don't quite get why they're moving so much cargo. Like, if these guys are just here for a meeting, it doesn't really make sense.
I mean,
that transporting lots of
that hangar looks like there is quite a bit of, there's a lot of containers laying around.
Yeah.
There. So what else is going on here?
Yeah. Like, are we just transferring funds and whatnot to Tarkin, or?
Man, I don't know.
Anyway,
Tarkin doesn't pack light.
It's crates of Beskar for the Mandalorian.
It's all that armor from the base that what's his face checked off.
Yeah, that's right. Oh my gosh, really?
But mouse droids zip about the floor too, and Tech radios down that Hemlock's ship is in docking lane number 4. And something we don't often see in the control room, Hunter actually ties up those two technicians.
Oh, really?
And Echo tells the other two that something isn't right. Many of the surveillance systems have been cycled in different corridors. So Tech notes that this is highly irregular considering the amount of high-ranking Imperials in attendance. And Hunter suggests that he and Tech check it out while Echo remains to monitor. Below, Echo or Omega scopes out which ship belongs to Hemlock, and finding their target, she notes that it's fairly exposed. Wrecker agrees and says there's not enough cover for him to make it over, but there is enough for Omega. Wrecker asks if she's up for it, and she readily agrees to be. Wrecker hands her the beacon, and he'll remain on watch while she gets to the ship. And like, there's almost some hesitation in Wrecker, like he doesn't want to pass it off to her just to keep her safe, but he knows that's his only option, right? Omega makes her way stealthily down along the wall of cargo, and she's almost found out by a trooper loading a skiff. But staying out of sight, she keeps pace with the skiff just out of sight line as the stormtrooper goes across the floor, and Wrecker watches from the shadows. As the trooper walks, yeah, basically.
Yeah, really. Cardboard box, anybody?
Yep.
Bling!
As the trooper walks away, Omega continues behind the crates of cargo until she reaches her destination and plants the homing beacon. She radios to Wrecker that the beacon is secure, but he tells her wait as more stormtroopers are heading her way. She ducks down in the shadows, avoiding the troopers before dashing back in Wrecker's direction. And reaching a middle point, there are troopers behind her and troopers blocking the path ahead. She radios that she's pinned down, but Echo responds this time saying he'll create a diversion. He scomps into the computer and he pulls out the schematics for a loading crane. And the Orabesh on the bottom here reads crane A71220Y81. And there is a match for part of this code.
That's a deep, that is a really deep cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Turns out the Kenner 1983 Return of the Jedi Princess Leia in combat poncho figure had a card number of 71220.
Interesting.
So
all things intentional. Do you think that one is?
You know what? Maybe.
Hard to say. I love it. I like that, but
I would more confirm it if the Y was 83.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
just that for the year released.
Wouldn't that be something? Yeah.
But I went looking to see maybe she was like figure number 81, but no, she's I think 49.
Okay.
Or something like that.
Of the however many you think are in the vintage line.
Yeah. Well, according to one guy, there's 167.
If you include all of the
variants,
Ewoks and droids and the final 17, yeah.
Yeah. Suddenly the crane springs to life and its magnetic hook latches onto one of the ships in the hangars, and the stormtroopers all take notice.
Bling! I love the exclamation point.
The Metal Gear. I couldn't help it with that one. But Echo lifts the ship and swings it into a wall of cargo, causing some troopers to run for cover while others drop what they're doing and run for help.
I don't think you could pass that off as a malfunction.
No, not at that point.
We're fishing with starships today in the hangar.
But it is funny that like it's a V-wing he picks up.
Yeah.
Those must have been hiding behind the wall of cargo, I guess.
I guess so.
Because the rest of the V-wing split off and I guess went back to the Star Destroyer or something.
The next time we see them, they're all parked outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. But consistency, folks. I don't know.
There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them.
Doing this, it gives Omega just the opening she needs, but before she can go, a mouse droid rolls up and is about to sound the alarm. But just in the nick of time, a foot comes down, smashing the little droid, and we pan up to find that it's Wrecker who lets out a sarcastic, oops.
It was such an opportunity here for Star Wars roller skates.
There was. But instead he shakes his leg as the droid's stuck on there, and finally it flies off and the two make their escape.
Skating around in a pair of mouse droids.
Well, we've already technically done that in Monsters versus Aliens. Where Giganta, she goes skating on two cars.
That's right. Yeah, 2 cars.
So similar to it, but in the main control room, the crane malfunction has set off an alert, and the technician relays to Lieutenant Maylure, as well as several surveillance systems off in Sector 4. Or what does he say here? Oh, yeah. He says there's a crane malfunction as well as surveillance systems are off in Sector 4. So furious, Lieutenant Maylure calls for a squad to be sent to investigate, as well as another one to secure the rail line. And in Sector 4, Tech and Hunter make their way through the halls, and Tech notices that a camera is down and not functioning. The Orabesh on his visor reads exactly that. Analyzing, camera is offline, no activity detected.
Nice.
I love that we get the classic Death Star security camera.
Yeah.
Like that we saw in
the 6-panel deal.
I guess, I brought it back in Andor for Bix's cell.
Yeah. Moving to a computer terminal, Tech finds this quadrant, the surveillance system has been fully deactivated, and Tech doesn't like it. He suggests they leave, but Hunter looks a little further down the hallway only to discover that there's a thermal explosive hidden behind a pillar, and they suddenly realize somebody else is targeting the base.
Yeah, for a second, I'm like, who planted that?
Yeah.
Like, we didn't do that, did we?
No. Tech surmises that one charge will not do much damage, but Hunter senses something and pulls his blaster. 2 stormtroopers step out from around the end of the hall with their blasters in a submissive position. The first trooper says, "Good thing we have more." And the first trooper steps forward with his hands raised, and he takes his helmet off and says, "I didn't expect to find you here." And it turns out it's Saw Gerrera.
So if nothing else ever happened this week, like if this was the only episode of Star Wars, that's all the internet would be talking about. Instead, no one is even mentioning Saw Gerrera in this episode.
He needs some hate for this episode.
He comes up a lot because of the second half.
Yep. Yeah. He should come up a lot more on the negative side.
There's a lot. I've seen a lot of comments about Saw Gerrera is personally responsible for the demise of. Yeah.
But Saw notes that he told them back on Onderon that they had to make a choice, and that was way back in episode 1.
Yeah, like season 1, episode 1.
Yeah. And from his perspective, they've chosen, and he orders his associate to keep an eye out while they duck back down the hall. Hunter asks what Saw's plan is here, and he plainly tells them that he intends to level the compound and all the Imperials that are inside it. And
Seems
Hunter,
like a good plan to me.
Yeah, Hunter tells him, we can't let you do that, as they need to track one of the officers back to his base, where clones are being imprisoned, including one of their own. And frustrated, Saw asks if Hunter expects him to call it off just to save a few prisoners. They're trying to fight the Empire. And Tech asks if he's stopped to think that by blowing up the compound, they'll be losing the opportunity to gather intel that could help them. But Saw barks back that taking out several of their top commanders is a good start.
He's not wrong.
He's not wrong, but
he's not wrong.
No.
But at the same time, they both have a valid point here.
I agree. They're just motivated differently.
Yeah, because Tech cites that the victory will be short-lived, as the Empire will quickly replace anyone lost.
So that's true. Picture guy.
Yeah,
that is true.
And comment coming in here from Doug.
Am I the drama?
Am I the drama?
Maybe. But Saw says that may be, but sacrifices must be made for the greater good. And then Saw's associate returns and tells them that they have to go, as a security team has been alerted. And just then, a stormtrooper comes through the door, and the group of them unload on this trooper, dropping him with multiple shots. More troopers come through, and Saw's associate takes a hit. Saw and his partner flee, leaving Tech and Hunter pinned down. So this is his first, kind of, hypocritical, cowardly act.
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, it is characteristic. I mean, if you followed him sort of through the Clone Wars and very early on, I mean, after the loss of his sister, that's where he kind of goes off the rails, and I don't think he ever really gets over that right up into including his death.
Yeah,
he's just this wild card. Is that the right term for it?
Yeah, I think that would work.
Yeah, he just gets increasingly more off the rails too.
Yeah.
He's a villain on the right side of the cause.
He's call it what it is. He's an extremist. He's dangerous.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's dangerous to not just the Empire, but to everybody else around him.
Yep. But back here, Tech throws a stun grenade, taking out 3 of the advancing troopers, and a 4th still firing from the end of the hall. But Tech takes him out with ease, and one more trooper hiding around the corner. He peeks out, and Tech is already there, pushing away his rifle, with Hunter following close, knocking him out and using him as a human shield as they advance down the hallway. With troopers, this batch of troopers anyway, is dealt with. Hunter and Tech race forward, radioing that they've been compromised and everybody needs to get back to the rail car. Doug says unrelenting force on his own path.
Yeah, that's a good analogy too.
And he only has one side.
He only has one side. His. Absolutely.
Accurate. Meanwhile, in the other hallway, though, Saw and his accomplice slip past advancing troopers, none the wiser. And with them past, Saw radios for his forces to get to the hangar. And his associate asks, what about the command center? But Saw says it's too late. And then he radios for everyone to get out before the Imperials find and disarm the explosives. Meanwhile, at the top of Raven's Peak, an operator relays to Tarkin that insurgents disguised as troopers have infiltrated the compound. And Tarkin relays to switch all transmissions to encoded channels and find the insurgents. Just then, the blast doors open and we see 6 shock troopers. 4 enter and 2 remain outside to guard the door. All but Tarkin and Hemlock stand, but Tarkin tells them, we'll resume momentarily. Take your seats. And this part's kind of neat. All the blast shields close on the windows and the room darkens and it's fully sealed.
We'll just hit the panic button.
Blade Runner action.
Yeah. Tarkin tells them, as you can see, we are perfectly safe. But back down in the hallways, the stormtrooper disguise continues to prove useful as Saw and companion make their way onward past more squads of stormtroopers. As elsewhere, Tech and Hunter are still exchanging rounds with more and more troopers. Tech and Hunter continue to run and gun until they find themselves pinned down. But just as 3 troopers have them dead to rights, a shot comes into frame, taking out one of the troopers, and then a 4th trooper gets thrown at the remaining 2. Love that shot. But it's Wrecker, Omega, and Echo. And just then the blast doors behind them open up, and Tech and Hunter open behind Tech and Hunter, and more troopers are at the ready and open fire. The batch returns fire for just a moment before scrambling down another hallway. And reunited, they make their way towards a ladder and start to climb down. Tech pulls out yet another stun grenade and throws it down the hallway, taking out 3 more stormtroopers, buying them enough time to get down that ladder. And we find out down below that it is the railcar dock, and the door opens, they all pile in, and once aboard, the door slides shut. Meanwhile, above, the stormtroopers have arrived, and they start making their way down the ladder too.
So I posed this question to you guys in the chat earlier in the week. I'm just realizing, like, did we ever think Omega's bow was lethal?
I always thought it was.
Yeah.
I always thought it was.
I don't recall her, like, I mean, she's nailed some beasts. I mean,
yeah.
I'm trying to remember her, like, you know, hitting somebody square in the chest or in the head with it, like, before this. But she's definitely like an 11-year-old killing people. Okay, I just want to get that straight.
It was commandeered though from another. There was a whole gang that used them, and it was confiscated from them. It had to be lethal for them, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's kind of what it just never occurred to me until I see her using it in conjunction with the batch using lethal force too. Going,
I think there's also a thing to be said though. Like you're making a good point. Like Lucasfilm probably put some thought into it. Do we put a firearm in a child's hand? Because that sends a message. But if we put a bow in her hand, then there's right. It's
I guess the lethality of it could be subjective.
Right.
Well, it could be like game mechanics where the longer you hold that bow, the stronger the bolt is.
Yeah, that's entirely possible too. Yeah.
I know she kills a couple stormtroopers in this episode.
For sure she does. For sure she does. Of course she does. But she didn't do it with a gun. So that's okay.
No. Yeah. We need to outlaw spoons.
So on the rail car, Tech tells them that they need an access code to get it going. So Echo, he scomps in to override it, and the rest of the batch ready themselves for whatever might be coming. Stormtroopers start to descend a ladder in the rear of the car, and Omega fires on them with her bow. So there you go. Still more troopers enter as the rail car lurches forward, and they trade fire. Omega looks over her shoulder as the rail car speeds out of the mountain, and back in the hangar, blast doors open, and we see Saw Gerrera and his band open fire on the troops in front of them, with one of his guys throwing another stun grenade further in to clear their path.
Those were popular this episode.
They were. Yeah. Had a lot of use.
On sale.
They continue to exchange fire on their way towards a ship. And Saw and 2 more of his squad climb aboard that ship, and Saw closes the ramp, yelling at them to get him out of here, completely unfazed that he's just lost 2 more of his squad. As the ship lifts off, they start firing into the hangar and spin around and zoom out the bay door. Outside, a turret gun opens fire, narrowly missing them. And on board, Saw throws off his helmet and triggers a detonator with a green button on it. And inside the compound, explosions ring through the hallways. In the hangars, troopers scream as they are decimated by explosive fire. And did anybody else catch their screams this week?
There was a good Wilhelm in there.
Oh my God, it was disturbing.
Yeah.
It was like a Wilhelm through a trooper helmet. But they're just completely gone. Seen from outside, explosions burst forth from all over the compound, moving up towards the tower. And inside that fortified office, the building shakes and a little bit of rubble drops from the roof. But the Imperials stay seated around their table, and shock troopers at the ready. Tarkin is absolutely furious of this. We catch up to the rail car speeding along the track, and inside, the Bad Batch are still trading fire with, I guess, a good handful of troops made it aboard. But as the explosions continue in the compound, a shockwave begins to travel down the rail, and eventually it makes its way to the rail car, shorting out the power. Wrecker,
Oops.
Yep. Wrecker takes out the last trooper as the car slows to a halt, And at the front of the car, Tech looks out through the slatted window, seeing they're now stuck about halfway between the mountain peaks. Let's see here. Tech spies a second rail car on the opposite end or opposing track, which has also come to a halt. And we see over there, stormtroopers are prying open the doors and they're preparing to fire. Inside, the batch huddle together, weapons raised, and Omega gives them each a concerned look. And we get a shot outside and we see the gears are now smoking on our rail car. And further back, we get a shot back there. The compound is smoking in the background. And, things do not look good for our boys.
Yeah, it's looking pretty dire at this point.
Yeah. So with that, we cut to black.
Mental.
Yep.
Again, the same thing with why they did. It's the same reason why we said Andor, those the 3 episodes, how they work as sort of a prologue.
Yeah.
The same thing here. You need to see both episodes back to back in order for it to be
as impactful.
Yeah.
As it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you waited,
another week for this,
you might not get the same emotional oomph that it does with watching them back to back.
Yeah. But like Guerrera, he triggers that with no hesitation.
No, I mean,
to him, it didn't matter if the batch were in or out. He was going up.
Soldiers follow orders.
And that's the thing about Saw Gerrera. He's got that those exacting sort of standards where it's like it's blind loyalty and nothing else. Like he will not settle for anything else.
Yeah.
Because
and he's also off his rocker.
Yeah.
Like,
those two things combined make him incredibly dangerous.
It's no wonder that the early rebellion had a hard time with him. He's like a wild dog. This unpredictability that no wonder he couldn't be part of the formal alliance.
Not
even Luthen Rail, who seems to be like an extremist in his own right.
Is
afraid to deal with Saw Gerrera personally.
For good reasons too.
Yeah.
Where are we at now? We're 48 minutes in. Does anybody need a break before we go on with the next one? Does anybody need
a little
bathroom break?
Like a 5. Grab a drink of water.
So if we take just a 4 or 5 minute break, we'll run some video in the background for everybody while we're away doing our thing. We'll come back. We'll run the intro video one more time, and then you guys will know we're coming back.
Yeah.
How's that sound?
Sounds good.
All right, then we'll be give us a 5 minute break here, guys, and we will be right back with
the exciting conclusion
of episode 16.
Yep.
Plan 99. We'll be right back, guys. Well, what's up, everybody? It's Wes, Andy, and Hank, and we are back. It's part 2 of our coverage of this week's grand finale of Star Wars The Bad Batch. It is the Fan Batch. It's episode 216. This one is called Plan 99. If you're just joining us now, we just covered 215, The Summit.
It's like we never left.
Which you can go back and catch in the replay. Nice to have you along here this afternoon on your Sunday afternoon. Thanks for wanting to hang out with us. We're going to keep that train rolling. We're going to go right into this because
keep that train rolling.
Oh my God! Before I get too angry because I get over emotional and and you all know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So let's get to it. All right, it's Plan 99. This one aired Wednesday, March 29th, in conjunction with episode 15. This one was written by Jennifer Corbett. It is directed by Stuart Lee. It has an advertised runtime of 29 minutes or 23 minutes and 53 seconds without titles or credits. And the synopsis for this one, very simple. The heroes are tested.
Are they ever?
They really are. They really are. All right. As always, if anything comes up for you guys that you just stop me and throw your points out there, because I know there's this hits on a bunch of different levels at a bunch of different times. Same goes for you guys watching at home. Hit us up with your comments in the live chat of the platform that you're watching on. We're happy to take your questions and comments and thoughts.
Yeah, join the conversation.
All right, let's get rolling here. All right, our episode opens exactly where we left off on Ariadu with the Imperial facility now in smoke and the two rail cars dangling precariously. Now Tech hatches a plan to get the power restored while the rest of the team engages the stormtroopers on the other car. Tech believes he can reboot the system, but in order to do so, he will have to plug into one of the terminals located on the track. Because that's not dangerous at all.
Yeah, my stress that it was like, oh no, as he gets further away from them, it's inversely proportional to my stress in this episode.
Absolutely, and we've seen Tech go off on his own in the Zillow Beast episode. He literally does the "I'll be right back" and kind of walks off, and you're like, no. Not so lucky this time. All right. As the firefight continues, Hunter vaults Tech up onto the top of the rail car, and then Tech ambles down the track, leaping onto one of the terminals. He tears off the cover and plugs in his data pad, and he gets to work. Inside the meeting room, Tarkin and the delegation are briefed by Lieutenant Mailer on the extent of the attack, with news that there are insurgents trapped on the rail line. Tarkin orders air support to shoot them down, and 3 V-Wings are dispatched. Now, even though Lieutenant Mailer is hesitant about the whole thing, Tarkin totally willing to sacrifice conscripts in the process, in the crossfire.
More where that came from.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just replace them.
That's right.
Speaks to the ruthlessness of this guy early on, which is such a contrast because at one point they painted him as friend and ally if you've been watching right since the Clone Wars.
Yeah. Well, like even in the last episode, he's all talking about galactic unification. And now it's like, yep, just blast.
Yeah. Makes you wonder, was he always that, extreme, talking about extremists like Saw Gerrera? Was Tarkin always that extreme right from the beginning and just kind of hit it well?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Enough backbone to take Vader on.
His culture is it's like a warrior hunter culture.
That's right. Yeah.
So they have some pretty, sort of, he's heavily influenced by that in terms of his command style and stuff. It's probably pretty ruthless.
Oh, right. Oh, that makes sense. Excuse me. Well, the V-Wings close in on the rail cars and they begin to open fire, damaging the clamping mechanism in the process, which causes the rear rail car to droop off of the overhead track. Now, at the same time, Tech actually manages to get the power restored. And our Orabesh this week, it says connected and power restored. Nice. Well, the fighters loop around for another pass, and as they do, the batch fires frantically at them. Hunter manages to damage a wing strut on one of the V-Wings, causing it to crash into another fighter. But the third fighter lands a volley of blaster fire, and the rail car droops even further off the track. to the point where the rear car's drive mechanism is no longer in contact with the track. Tech falls on top of the rear rail car, and the whole thing snaps in half, hanging by a thin strands of metal. And Tech falls off the car, but he manages to snag it with a grappling hook and dangles roughly 30 feet below, swinging like a pendulum. And it just gets dire from here. As the firefight continues between the two rail cars, Tech climbs the grapple line, but the going is very slow. The weight of the rear car has pulled the front car down now, and its drive mechanism loses contact with the track. And it just sits there spinning as Echo tries to get them moving. Hunter yells at Recco to reel Tech in. But as soon as Wrecker steps onto the rear car, it lurches and pulls apart even further. And Tech yells up, "Don't!" adding that any shift in the car's weight could pull them both off of the track. I'm not here. Number 9. As more blaster fire hits the car, Tech falls back to the end of his line, losing any progress that he had made in his climb. Off in the distance, another flight of V-Wings lifts off, racing towards the rail line, blaster cannons ablaze. More incoming fire strikes the front car, and it drops even further off the track. Now, Tech yells at Wrecker to cut the line, but Wrecker refuses to. "Not until you're inside." Tech argues there's no time, and then drawing his blaster, he says, "Plan 99, Wrecker." Despite his incredible strength, Wrecker struggles to hold both rail cars together as he tells his brother, "Don't you do it, Tech," while Omega watches wide-eyed. And we really haven't heard a whole lot of the plan, the plan speak for quite a bit this season. It's sort of kind of fell by the wayside. Only mentioned it once or twice.
I think twice this season, yeah.
Including this one, I think.
Yeah. The other one is Crosshair, actually.
Yeah, go figure, right?
Well, they use the one on Coruscant when they're breaking into steal the data that they need for clone rights.
Oh, that's true. That's true, yeah.
He's like, both at once? Yep.
I think I remember that when they were introduced in that those 4 restored episodes of the Clone Wars where like they were talking about combining this plan with that plan all at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there is 99 of them, apparently.
Apparently. Well, taking a deep breath, Tech says, "When have we ever followed orders?" And he fires a single round at the thin shred of cabling that's holding the two cars together. Wrecker shouts, "No!" and watches helplessly while Tech and the rear rail car fall away, disappearing into the cloud cover. With the weight of the rear car removed, the front car snaps back onto the rail, and when the drive mechanism meshes with it, the car rockets off toward the bottom of the mountain. Oh, a comment here coming in from Sarah. Sarah says, "Tech falling broke my heart." Mine as well. If you've been watching our show from season 1, you know that Tech has been my boy right from the first episode. And now it becomes so clear why, our biggest complaint, which is the same complaint that many of you had, was so many of the episodes were mission of the week. They didn't move the main narrative, but we're like, man, they're really developing Tech this season.
Yeah.
Now we know why. And tip my hat to the writers because you sucked me in completely. I grew to love this character more than I thought I did at the beginning. And so my heartbreak was commensurate with how much I love this character. So well done, you crafty bastards.
I always hate to see a main character go when they've
you do. Now, narratively speaking, he's dead.
Yeah.
He is
for all intents and purposes, nobody should be able to
narratively speaking.
That's what I mean. I mean, the narrative leaves you with he fell through the cloud cover from an impossible height.
I have a theory.
And even if he survived the fall, the train car falling on top of him surely killed him.
I have a theory.
I have lots of theories.
I have a theory.
we'll get into it at the end.
Lots of theories. We will get to them.
It certainly involves the last scene.
Plan 99, do we think it was code or was it just straight up Plan 99 is the plan where one of them sacrifices themselves?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think
we're just going to call that's what it is. There's no deeper thing there.
That's the end game. Plan 99 is the end game.
Yeah, of course.
I know that he dies, and it's very sad, but I had to wonder what Plan 66 was.
Yeah, really.
And did it, you know, was it an anti-Order 66? Did they
I don't know.
evoke Plan, you know,
It makes you, you really wonder.
thing
Now
crossed my head as I'm watching him fall.
I want the plan handbook. I want to see them all.
Big list.
That's what I want. Yep. All right. Well, the damaged rail car rockets off towards the station, and Echo is unable to stop it. Now, the stormtroopers at the bottom, they all scramble while the car smashes through the back wall, coming right off the track, and the screen goes to black. Interesting choice here with this. Fading back in, we see Omega laying on the ground, and she's surrounded by wreckage. Now, she tries to get up, only to collapse again. And then we're treated to this foggy montage of her being carried by Wrecker as she fades in and out of consciousness while the batch make a fighting withdrawal back towards the Havoc Marauder. Now, along the way, Hunter makes the decision to go back to Ord Mantell, saying that AZ3 can help Omega.
It's weird. I'm wondering, is that the only reason? Because wouldn't they take her back to the island?
There's no technology. There's no droids and nothing.
I suppose, Pabu seems far gone. Tech, yeah. At the same time, I mean, look at AZ3's history. Yeah, AZ3's history. He was already, and he was already working at Camino, so he was already involved somehow.
He's a tech medic anyway.
I guess it makes sense.
Or a clone medic.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
And at the time, they didn't know that they had to leave him behind, right?
No, they didn't. Yeah,
because if they'd have known, then chances are they would have just brought him along.
Right.
One sec, fellas. Keep going.
Oh, of course. And Doug, but Sid, and of course we do have to deal with that, and I have some thoughts about that as well. Probably like most of you, not happy.
No,
not happy about how that played out at all.
But at the same time,
not unexpected.
No,
not unexpected. Okay. Well, speaking of Sid, Omega wakes up at Sid's place as she finds Hunter sitting next to the bed. Well, then AZ3 floats in and tells her that everyone sustained multiple injuries, but they will make a full recovery, including Wrecker, who's now in a very substantial neck brace. And then the reality of Tech's death sets in for Omega, and she fights with the notion that he's really gone before finally accepting it, and then cries for a while on the edge of the bed while Hunter tries to console her. After talking about how the galaxy and their place in it has now changed, Hunter says it's time to stop being soldiers, and that if Omega wants to, he thinks that Pabu is the place to do it, which Omega agrees to. She says something like, "Why did Tech do that? He didn't let us save him." And then Hunter says to her, "Well, he knew that we were out of time, and he put the squad ahead of himself. He made a sacrifice, Omega, and we're not going to waste it. The rest, we'll figure out along the way." And then he says, when he asks her if that's what you want, and when she nods, and he says, "Well, then that's what we'll do." Very paternal, very fatherly.
Yeah.
In that moment, I think more than any other, he is as resolved as he's ever been to just be her adopted father.
Yeah.
Follow-up comment from Doug, who says it was a cup game. We suspected Sid while falling for Tech. Yeah, absolutely. Removing Echo allowed the light to shine on Tech. That's a very interesting point. I've seen other people make the comment that there's a duality between Tech and Echo, that they have similar roles within the team. I don't necessarily agree with that 100%. I mean,
it's like I said a few episodes ago when the one where Tech left, I was like, I just realized, or sorry, the one where Echo left.
When Echo left, yeah.
No, I'm the voiceover guy. When Echo left, I was like, I suddenly realized I don't actually give a dang about any of these other characters.
Really?
Yeah, I'd said it in the episode. I mean, I certainly have grown to, appreciate them more. And it was just compared to Echo, I was really like invested in his story based on his past.
Yeah, I think that speaks a lot, though. We had so much more. I mean, he had his own arc in the Clone Wars, which made him this like, oh my God, there's more with this guy.
Yeah.
So, like Doug said, maybe perhaps that's like you had to get rid of Echo a little because a lot of us were sort of going, yeah, well, I have a fondness for Echo, but you know what are these guys? You know, nothing was compelling enough until, you know, I guess a death had to ante it up. Certainly,
I find it interesting that when he turned up at the beginning of this arc, I was surprised that he stayed. I did not expect that. I didn't expect him to hang around.
Just like, here's your info.
Exactly. I expected him to show up, get the data, and then leave. And he didn't do that.
No.
Which, you know, there's more questions around that. So what's Rex doing? Do you know what I mean? Like, he left specifically to get in the fight with Rex.
Yeah.
Now it looks like, well, Rex was just the catalyst and Echo is out there doing his own thing in support of that, but they're not together. And that kind of confused me.
It could be that it's so vast that there's multiple fronts.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure there is. This clone uprising that's been sort of permeating through the whole season. We didn't get it.
Not yet.
We didn't get it.
Kind of glad almost because now it does give me some sort of, yeah, it might run neck and neck for Tech's sacrifice. You don't want to overshadow that, but I think maybe it just gives us something to look forward to next season in terms of an overall. You know,
I think so.
You've been pushing that sort of storyline for 3 seasons, so that's probably the big, you know, event that we're leading up to.
Yeah, and maybe with this season being, and I don't want to say disjointed because I don't think that's the right word. It's not necessarily wrong either. Maybe the next season will be more linear in terms of the storytelling, like those keeping the main plot moving and growing as opposed to.
This is definitely the Empire Strikes Back season.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It ends dour. So if we're doing a 3-season thing, then, you know, we probably get
we should be a little more bright by the end of it.
Moderate, yeah. Hopefully, you know, Fuzzy Bears aside, but we have there's a lot to look forward to. I mean, especially with respect to the cloning storyline when we get there.
Yeah. Well, out in the bar room, Sid pours Wrecker a drink, but Wrecker shoves it aside, saying that it won't help. Sid says that she's sorry about Goggles, and she always liked him. At the docking bay, Echo sits alone in the cockpit of the Havoc Marauder. Sighing, he looks forlornly at the empty pilot's seat beside him. Well, then Gonky waddles over, honking away quite loudly, and when Echo goes outside, he sees gunships deploying from a Venator-class Star Destroyer now hovering above the city. Echo tries to warn the rest of the crew that the Empire is there, but the comm signal is jammed, so he dons his helmet and he heads off to find them on foot.
So, Gonky, proximity alarm.
Yeah, seriously. Early warning system. Not early enough, Gonky. At the bar, Sid taps a clawed finger nervously. When Wrecker asks, "What's with you?" she tries to convince herself that what she did was justified, that she tried to look out for them. But there was just too much heat. Then the door to the parlor slides open, and a squad of clone commandos rushes in. One of them stuns Wrecker, but he shakes off the blast, and he charges at them. Meanwhile, in the back room, Hunter jumps up with his pistol and tucks in against a wall as 2 commandos round the corner and open fire. So Hunter blasts the controls to the doors and opens a hatch to the mining tunnels, telling Omega to use them to get to the spaceport and find Echo while he goes after Wrecker. It's a pretty cool scene here too, where they no questions, no talking, we just round the corner and guns ablaze.
Yep.
Oh, Sid.
Yep, she called it in.
Oh, I can't.
She tried so hard, TV. And I mean, like, it's everything that we knew was going to happen, but like the fact that she tried to talk her way. She's not talking for his benefit. She's talking for herself. And it just tells you how weak of character she is.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, I made a point out in my notes when they leave. I say that they leave Ord Mantell probably for the last time. If we never saw Sid again, I'd be okay with that.
I just don't like it. There's this sort of narrative a lot where people do horrible things and then they feel sorry for themselves and you're supposed to empathize with them, but I can't. I like, if you do shitty stuff, I don't like, you don't wallow in your own grief. You call, you know, like,
really,
you don't, you don't get to.
Yeah, you don't get to be upset for the thing that you did.
Yeah,
I have no sympathy for her.
No, I do not either.
Yeah, raspberries.
Think back to when we were talking about this character early on and how excited we were about her. That it was that like, oh, what's going on here? We've never been this close to a Trandoshan before.
yeah,
And we were like, is it Bosk's mom? Do you remember that?
Yep.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah.
Turns
out she's a. Yes.
If she is Bosk's mom, it's no wonder we don't see him. Even he's embarrassed about her.
Well, I guess they, they're cut from the same cloth, and
I suppose, yeah.
Scumbags.
They're not nice people. Comment from Sarah says, Sid betraying the batch reminded me of Lando in Empire Strikes Back.
So that's exactly where I think we're gonna go with. We're gonna have, because of the soft sort of like, the way she feels sorry for it, even though I don't agree with it. I'm sure that we're gonna get a that Lando-esque redemption arc from her in the next season.
Interesting.
Where she swoops in to help them. Like Rhea Perlman's probably too big a cast member to lose.
To just drop her like that.
She's fantastic. Even though we're not in love with the character anymore, she's fantastic, right? So, and she does such a good job as the character.
Maybe she comes back with Ernie Hudson's character, and the two of them exact some kind of plan to make amends.
I was thinking that Lando thing exactly myself, and there's that extension.
It's a great analogy. I quite like that.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, they've spent a good chunk of this season telling us we don't know Sid. You don't know what she's capable of. You don't want to be on her bad side,
right? And I mean, both Fee and Malegi both said it. They both warned them.
Yeah,
she didn't seem remorseful when she was threatening them with this.
Absolutely not.
No.
Yeah, right? When she intoned like, "Hey, I can just make a phone call and it'll be over."
Yeah, and I'm not just threatening you boys either.
And it turns out that's exactly what she did.
Yeah.
What's interesting is she made the right phone call, because like the big bad shows up.
Yeah,
not some lower. No, you're right. Absolutely
right. Like she made the exact right call.
Yeah, absolutely, she did. Well, in the tunnel, Omega stops as she contemplates her next move. Now, AZ encourages her to keep moving, but she can't. Having just lost Tech, she won't lose another. And she beckons AZ to follow her back up into the parlor. Now, at the same time, the pair of commandos work on the controls for the locked door. But it's not necessary, because the door explodes off the frame, taking out the commandos with it. Now, pistol drawn, Hunter cautiously makes his way out into the bar room, where half a dozen commandos surround Wrecker, who's bound and on his knees. Dr. Hemlock is with them, and he thanks Sid for her information and hands her a case full of credits. All for the money.
Yep.
Now, as they stand there facing each other, it's not much of a standoff, because Hunter is hopelessly outnumbered, and he knows it. Now, maintaining his aim on Dr. Hemlock, he watches as Sid leaves the parlor. And it's a great moment, because, I mean, never take your eye off your enemy. And it's not Hemlock in this case. He like follows her out of the room, which I thought, he's like, if daggers.
Yeah.
And justified, if you ask me.
But that would eliminate her redemption arc.
That's true. Yeah, that is true. Having made their way back up into the parlor, Omega and AZ crawl into the ductwork, where they can hear what's going on out in the bar room. Well, Hemlock instructs Hunter to basically hand over Omega, and for that, he will let him live. But Hunter defiantly says that Omega isn't going anywhere with you. Hemlock is surprised at his reaction, calling him paternal, which he very much is.
Yeah.
Switching gears, he says that he was saddened to learn of Tech's demise. At the sound of his brother's name, Wrecker growls as he struggles against his restraints. But a commando places a hand on Wrecker's shoulder as a gentle reminder of the situation he's actually in. Producing what looks like Tech's glasses, Hemlock says, "I am afraid this is all I could salvage." Then tossing them at Hunter's feet, he says, "Consider it a gift." Is it the real deal?
I would say so.
I would say
yes. So this theory time here.
Yeah,
they recovered his body.
Yep.
I mean, he's lying. This is all we found, but that's not true.
Yeah.
They recovered his body. They took the time. Okay. They took
To
the
go
time
find
to
him.
recover his right. Like,
Yeah, these aren't standard Fett clones.
No.
who was present at that fight that would go, this is where he fell?
Well, you would assume there'd be some like smoking wreckage at the bottom where the rail car impacted.
That's my
They
first thought is
the
just
smoke trail.
I guess
follow the busted
yeah,
up
they
car.
happened upon so they investigate the sort of the scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is not your standard Fett clone. No.
No.
And I'd be surprised if they don't clone him and make an evil version of him to go with the evil version of Crosshair, which would be tragic and difficult to watch.
Yeah.
Then he's not dead. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we've seen these guys do insanely.
Yeah. So we call them superheroes. They are the non-force using superheroes of the Star Wars galaxy.
And we've seen them put Echo back together. We've seen them put Maul back together. We've seen them put Vader back together. Imagine if we put Tech back together. Like, literally,
do we droid him up?
Well,
out of Tech. Interesting.
Right.
Interesting.
So
that is
those are the real deal.
Yeah.
They have the body. If it's alive, I wouldn't be surprised.
I feel that we are somewhere in the same ballpark. I too think that they have the body, but I do think it is a body. I think he is lifeless. I went the other way. I multiplicity did. I think, let's clone the clone, but we won't do the multiplicity thing and make him kind of like, I like pizza. We'll make him an actual, he will be Tech restored. It'd be, like Data coming back in Star Trek and having to like relearn who he is. That could make for some compelling viewing.
Or if you wanted to skip that, he uses grapple line to hang on, right? So it wasn't the magnetic repeller, right?
Right. It was an actual hook.
Yeah. So supposing he's falling, he's calculating in his head, if I fall at this velocity and I aim for that tower over there,
well, there's that.
And perhaps just in the nick of time he swings,
it's the pendulum effect, and
just enough to slow him. That way, when he falls through the trees, he breaks all his legs and arms.
He Rambos it through the forest.
That was exactly what I was going to say. He Rambos.
And then, of course, they find him broken, bleeding, everything on the floor.
Yeah.
Do the same thing they did to Crosshair,
crumpled and folded up, and
So they take him, they nurse him back to health just to torture the crap out of him.
So in a nutshell, between the three of us, nobody thinks we're done with this character.
I was going to say, between the three of us, dead, not dead.
Kid show, man.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But we're definitely not done with this character. Okay.
No, we cannot be done with this character.
He will be back.
And I don't think it'll be right away. They'll get you going. Time will have passed. The batch will have moved on.
The MacGuffin in that season.
Yeah, of course.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now we have a compelling reason for him to, for Tech and Crosshair to pair up and go on some kind of escape or whatever it turns out to be.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, outside the parlor, Omega and AZ climb out a second story. Oh, wait. Sorry. Did I skip ahead? I did. Sorry. Hemlock calls it a shame to Hunter as a leader to have lost one of your own. And he follows that up with, and if you don't lower your blaster, you'll lose another. As two of the commandos shove their barrels into Wrecker's back, at which he just growls and shakes his head no at Hunter. But Hunter complies, and he puts his blaster on the floor and picks up Tech's glasses.
So we talked about this in the chat as well.
Yeah.
Like the actual strategic thing to do here,
shoot him, is
kill him.
Shoot him anyway.
You're going to die anyway, or something horrible is going to happen to you anyway, and you can stop him right here. And I know it's a kid show, but that is the mastermind. That's the checkmate maneuver. Sacrifice yourself.
Wrecker is shaking his head. No, he's ready to die on the spot.
Wrecker gets it. Gets it, and it's
don't do it.
And Omega's already safe ostensibly.
She's in the wind. She could be gone.
It's a strange decision
and
it's possibly because he does deliver that line that plays on his insecurity as the leader. Which he's been struggling with all season. Right. So,
and it is funny that he calls that shame. Yes, Hunter is like remorseful that they've lost Tech. Whereas Saw, he's losing people left and right and doesn't give a crap.
Does not care. Yeah.
Yeah.
Strength of character, right?
Yeah,
Strength
exactly.
of character. Well, 2 commandos rush over and they cuff Hunter while a third enters the room from the back, announcing that the girl isn't in the office. Of course, she's still watching and listening from the ductwork. Outside the parlor, Omega and AZ climb out a second-story vent. Now, Omega instructs AZ to find Echo while she goes off to help Hunter and Wrecker, who are now being led away in cuffs and under heavy guard. Comment coming in here from Sarah, who says, I don't understand why the clone commandos are still loyal to the Empire. Now, we've had a bit of a conversation around this, but let's talk that one out a little bit more, because I know we have some thoughts on that.
I think it's a function of the mind flayer.
Yeah.
You do?
And the reason they're collecting clones. I think that these commandos, the reason they don't revolt, the reason they follow orders blindly is because, like that reset we talked about last,
they're regularly wiped.
They're going through extreme conditioning.
Regularly wiped. Yeah.
They're like blank clones.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, at the same time, the streets of Ord Mantell are in chaos as citizens flee in every direction at the sight of Imperial troops and walkers that are now patrolling the street. After firing off a warning shot, Omega demands that Hunter and Wrecker be set free. Dr. Hemlock proposes to exchange them for her, and he only wants to reunite her with Nala Se. But it doesn't really matter because the clone commando Scorch has snuck up behind her and stuns her.
I think she would have made the swap.
You think so?
I do.
I do too. I think she would have made the sacrifice as well. Interesting that Hemlock orders when they're found to take them all back to Ariadu because Tarkin wants to question them personally.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't know that they're not on the same page with Saw.
That's true.
As far as Tarkin's concerned, they're all one big.
That is true. They could just
unit.
Be one big, one big rebel insurgency. One rebel's the same as another. It'd be interesting though to find out. Oh, you're clones? Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But Tarkin is aware. He is aware of Crosshair.
Yeah.
In fact, he's aware of all of them because Tarkin was in the room in season 1 when they did the training.
Yes. Yeah. He was assessing them to see how good they could be going forward.
When Tech commandeered the Phase 1 Dark Trooper.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I just remembered that.
But again, they were all believed dead at the end of season 1.
That is true. Yeah. They were all presumed.
Because I don't think Rampart ever relayed the information that they were alive.
No, I think he was.
That would have thrown himself under the bus.
Yeah, he was holding on to that. And Rampart's still out there somewhere too. I don't think he's dead either. I think he's
dead.
I think he's incarcerated.
I think he's dead.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, AZ having linked up with Echo, they now move through the rooftops, evading the Imperial troops. With the streets full of stormtroopers, they know they can't run. So instead, they commandeer a walker and they use it to fight their way to where Hunter and Wrecker are about to be loaded onto a gunship. Wrecker breaks their bonds, and together he and Hunter join the fight, and using the walker's cannons, the gunship is destroyed. Elsewhere, Dr. Hemlock and Scorch, who's now carrying the unconscious Omega over his shoulder, board a Row-class shuttle. Then another walker joins the battle and shoots out the legs of Echo's walker, and both he and AZ are forced to abandon it and join Hunter and Wrecker on foot. I really like this sequence. This was one of my favorite sequences of the whole episode. One, Scorch is back. We knew he was going to come back. I didn't think that he would be back with Hemlock. I actually thought that he was going to be out there doing his own thing, hunting them down, but
well, technically he is.
Yeah. There was something else here. What was I say? The border shuttle. Okay, well, I guess it's not really important. I'll move on to the next thing. We talked about it earlier, Andy, when we were going through the summit about the evolution from the Republic to the Empire. And this is really the Stormtrooper armor is a subtle thing. I found this to be way more overt, that this is a new class of walker that we've never seen before. And I put together a little slide here with a little evolution of walkers.
Yeah.
Thanks to StarWars.com, we know that this one is actually called the ATAC, although they don't tell us what the acronym actually stands for. At one point, the descriptive audio errantly calls it an ATST, but it is clearly not the classic chicken walker that we saw back in The Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi. And nor is it the Macquarie concept walker from Star Wars Rebels, the ATDP. Somewhere in the middle, I guess. Somewhere. It replaces the ATAP. That's a three-legged walker that was used throughout the Clone Wars. It replaces that, and it is in the same line that will produce eventually the ATST. It actually has the same feet as the ATDP. Now the command pod, the module on top, the head, I guess, does it not look like a shorter version of the Imperial troop transport? Has that really same kind of linear
of it, yeah.
It's that kit bashing again.
I really like this design. I think I like it. I might actually like this one better than the classic chicken walker, to be honest. Well, that's your big tech moment here. I was saying to you guys earlier privately that I had hoped to see more of this evolution. We're a year post Clone War now, sort of narratively speaking, and we knew that the Empire, from all the stuff that we've read, they moved very quickly to sort of like get away from to transition to the new Empire. I was surprised that we didn't see more of this. They're still using gunships. They're still using V-wings. The Venators they're all painted Battleship Gray now, but they're still using all of this Republic era tech.
Yeah.
And now we have a real stride, pardon the pun, we have a real stride forward with this new walker.
Ostrich. Well, and we still, like, when we get to the end of the Mandalorian episode, we're still seeing that trend.
Yep.
In a big way, which I thought was very interesting that far into the game.
I agree. I totally agree with that. Well, with stormtroopers and commandos closing in, the crew takes to the rooftops as they race to stop Hemlock's shuttle from taking off. But it's too late, and they watch helplessly as the Roe-class shuttle rises out of the docking bay. With the heat mounting, they run for the Havoc Marauder, and they leave Ord Mantell probably for the last time. And I cannot help but point out that they flew past at least 3 Venators in the process and got away clean without any other
no ships intercepting,
nothing,
no tractor beams,
nothing. They got the one hovering above the city, and then you've got 2 in orbit. And I think, Andy, when you said we actually didn't see them, we saw them show up at Ariadu. There was 3 of them there. But for sure, there are clearly 2 of them in orbit here over Ord Mantell.
Yeah.
And we're just going to fly right down the middle.
Yep. Stealth.
Okay.
Stealth, or is the code still working from last episode?
That's an interesting thought.
If it's still
that's
the same.
Still true. Yeah, they could be transponding out. Yeah.
Still, though, I mean, you think if you're there to get them, you would lock the whole place down. Nothing in or out while we're here doing this. Guess that didn't really happen. But that's okay. That's okay. On board the Havoc Marauder, the clones reel at the loss of Omega, but they are resolved. Echo says there was no way back. There was no way to track Hemlock's shuttle, and they could be anywhere. And Hunter says, we're going to get her back, and we don't stop searching until we do.
Resolved.
Yeah, they are resolved. And as you said, Hank, I think that will be the overarching narrative of the whole 3rd season. Or they'll Mandalorian it, and it'll be done by the 2nd episode. Okay, we got her back.
Maybe
there's an interesting thing here, and I wouldn't wish this on anybody, but if you've ever lost 2 people very close in time together, when you don't have time to, depending on how close that is, you don't have time to process the first one when the second one hits. And so this sort of thing, like, you got to think for their mental state. There's a lot of turmoil now. You haven't processed tech when suddenly there's no time to mourn, because now your mission is
to get her back,
find Omega. And so that's the psychology is not lost on me here. There's interesting
What's interesting is that
heavy stuff for a kids show, man.
They don't really talk about it. Like they're adults. They treat the clones, like the Bad Batch, like they're adults, even though they're all the same. They're younger than Omega.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, Lauren points that all the time. She's older than them.
Yeah,
especially when they speak about giving her a proper childhood.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Right.
Omega is our eyes as the viewer. She's our through the show. Yeah. And so she's the one that does all the emotional sort of upheaval, like when Echo leaves and she's upset about that. And then Tech dies and she's upset about that. And now she's gone and they are all doing exactly what she did when she was experiencing that loss. So it's interesting to see them, a little bit of role reversal here.
And without Tech there's no one to give them any like sort of logical point of view. Like,
no, there isn't. Yeah,
this is how we move on, even if it's cold.
Right.
So they're they're hurting on so many fronts.
Yeah, for sure they are. Arriving at Mount Tantus, Omega and Nala Se are reunited on the landing platform, albeit under heavy guard. Omega asks the Kaminoan why she was brought there, but Nala Se doesn't answer. Then Scorch forcibly pushes Omega forward, and she's escorted inside the facility, leaving Nala Se and Dr. Hemlock alone to talk. Hemlock says that the former Kaminoan Prime Minister said that she had an attachment to Omega, and now that they are together again, maybe she would reconsider working on the Emperor's project. Nala Se says that what the Emperor wants is impossible, but Hemlock tells her to make it possible. And should she fail, it will be Omega that suffers the consequences. Not above using children as leverage.
Well, he is evil genius.
He is evil, and still wringing that hand. What's underneath that glove?
Yeah.
The special poison hand.
Yeah, really. It's got a dart in it or something. All right. Well, inside the facility, Dr. Scalder leads Omega to a darkened lab and orders her to wait here. Inside the lab, there are several fluid-filled tanks with suspended humanoid bodies in them. And the more I look at it, the more I have come to the conclusion that I'm pretty sure those are clones.
Commandos, probably.
Several unconscious clones are strapped to tables around the room, including Crosshair. Rushing to his side, Omega calls out, but he doesn't wake up. Then Emery Carr enters the room. She tells Omega that Crosshair is recovering from not having cooperated with Dr. Hemlock. She said that she warned him what would happen, and it did. Omega demands to talk to Nala Se, and Emery, she calls it ironic that Omega would trust the Kaminoan scientist over her. Omega says, "I don't even know you." But Emery questions her certainty about that as she kneels down in front of Omega, asserting that she might know her more than she thinks. Well, removing her red goggles, she looks squarely at Omega and tells her, "We're sisters." And the shocked expression fills Omega's face as she raises her eyebrows. This is a good, we've never really got to see them sort of side by side like this before.
Do you want to play my soundbite now?
Nailed it.
That's a good point.
Nailed it.
Yeah, Emery Carr is a clone.
Yep.
Yeah. I also, and I don't want to toot my own horn, but I said the most tragic thing that could happen is we lose Omega at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Not like you couldn't see that coming, but nailed that too.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Well, then the camera snap cuts to an empty hallway lined with the ray shielded prison cells, then to a landing platform outside the facility, and finally the mountain before we cut to black and the episode ends, as does season 2. Omega is now in possession of the Empire, as we suspected she would be. Tech is dead, and the rest of them don't know what to do.
Because they do not have a location to go to yet.
They've been betrayed by the only person that was supporting them. They are quite literally in the lurch and really kind of aimless. Well, not aimless, but
however,
there's only one place to go for them right now.
They can go back to Pabu, which is probably not a good idea.
They're going to Rex. Yeah,
they could go to the Martez garage on 1313.
Yep.
That's true. That's probably a little too close to the mark right now, I would think, in terms of their.
Yeah.
Well, now they're alive, and it's well known that they're alive.
That's true. That is so true.
but
and
they're in possession of the knowledge that clones are being taken, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay,
maybe
that's better.
Maybe the Empire doesn't even care. They've got what they want now.
Well, Hemlock
they do,
he's got all his pieces now.
If they're going to try to, first of all, they don't know where she is. It'll be hard to track down that information. It might be like a murder mystery kind of action, try to figure out where she is. But ostensibly, where they've got her, they would just be swatted away like flies now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see. I mean, unless this clone revolt is like, and we're talking like Clone War level. Let's get everybody, like hundreds of clones, all descend on Tantus. There's no way that they're conventionally breaking them out of there.
No,
I just don't see that being realistic. Cartoon. I shouldn't say that realistic. I just don't see that as being an option.
Well, you get somebody in there into a control room, and you
that's
have an outside attacking force. You unlock all the prisoners in there.
Oh, so we Narkina 5 that stuff.
Yeah, Narkina 5 plus.
Yeah, really.
Possibly.
Oh man.
It's a lot.
I thought we'd take a few minutes and just kind of summarize our thoughts on the whole season now that it's over. We'll just take a couple of minutes here to go through that. I don't think we need to come back and do a whole like after show on that, because I think we've been very sort of transparent and on the nose with our feelings throughout the season.
Yeah.
But I mean, is there any highlights of the season that you guys remember fondly that you want to talk about?
Yeah, just Omega's training. She's not the same kid from last season.
No, she's definitely
and she's exhibited a whole lot this season.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to the racing episode. I'm going to call that was my highlight, just to see. Yeah, I love that episode more than anybody has a right to. It was so tongue in cheek, and it was just so much fun. And if Mission of the Week was going to be like that, I would have been okay with more of that, but it wasn't.
So I feel like maybe 4 out of 16 episodes even mattered. But they really mattered.
Yeah, they really did. Yeah.
Like that, it sounds like I'm being harsh on the season, but that skews it way positive, because like, especially like I was saying, like, oh, we finally got the season premiere with the finale. Yeah. Like that's what I wanted all season. And I know, like, I know, but yeah, it was excellent. It was.
Let me just put this comment up here.
Some big stakes.
Yeah, we did. I want to put this comment up because this is actually pretty cool. This is actually Sarah is not the only person that I've seen say this. I think Emery will help Omega escape in season 3. It may be contacting the batch. I've seen a lot of people say that Emery might be the new tech going forward. She may fill that role.
Well, she's definitely given enough hints that she's not happy with what Hemlock is doing.
The first time we met her, I think I had said something to, why does she speak so blunted? Like she's almost like, I've been on medication for a long time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and then to come to the conclusion that Emery seems like Emery and Hemlock are the inverse of Nalase and Omega.
Yeah.
There's probably some truth to that Emery will. And probably because of Omega. The one thing I've said about Omega the entire season is that kid is ever the optimist when things are at their absolute worst. How many times did she say, oh, it'll be fun?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can see her, when she accepts the fact that, oh, we're both clones. We're both presumably Fett clones at that. A few words of encouragement from Omega based on her own experiences. Maybe Emery will flip, and maybe she will be the one to help them get out.
I mean, maybe she doesn't have to flip far, because a lot of like we see with Galen Urso, a lot of these people are in these positions against their will.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so
especially
maybe
if
she doesn't have to flip far.
The New Republic has an entire amnesty program for people who may have been pressed into service against their will.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But for Emery,
sort of
right
a power
gate,
shell for bad guys.
Sorry, Emery, right out of the gate, being like, "I'm your sister." Like, there's that family connection that,
Yeah.
Star Wars is built around family.
So is she accelerated? Is she accelerated like the rest of them? Because she's an adult.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, okay.
I would say 100%. And then, like we said, if there's Alpha to Omega, there are we've just seen
bunch
another
more
one of
in
them.
between.
Yeah,
in
Theta or
between
whatever.
characters.
There's
Yeah,
21
exactly.
more accelerated, clone 99 persona.
All right.
Batch
So tech
99, I guess.
tech dead, not dead. Definitely going to be revisited to some capacity in season 3. We have more clones in the wind. Certainly Cody is our big name. We haven't seen Cody since he took off at the high port. That's right.
Or likely to get Wolf too. I mean, let's be realistic. We have he's a big part of Rebels and he's not there. So
more transition away from Republic to the Empire for season 3, possibly.
Yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah, I would say time jump. I was
going to say time jump that we will pick up in media res in season 3 with the batch. There'll be some exposition where we've been looking for so many months and we still haven't found her.
Yeah, basically.
Right? Or maybe even years, who knows?
But we know from where they end up, obviously the Kaminoan is going to cooperate.
Well, this is it, and we know that
program
they cooperate to some degree, but they don't get to the point where Hemlock is talking about the recombinant DNA, like the two separate species.
Yeah,
we know from what Pershing says in the Mandalorian that they never got there.
No.
That's what his research was doing.
Yeah, he was close, but not there yet.
But you know that Pershing's research builds on what the Kaminoans did in their singular organism cloning.
Yeah.
It's all connected. Oh my gosh. TJC, what are you saying here? They are obviously laying the framework for a big payoff action episode, which will then bring it in line with the live action stuff. Hard to say which way they're going to go, though. We'd said that earlier, that it's all of these shows, it's going to be like this big eclipse where every planet will align and they will all be dead down the middle.
Yeah.
And I would love to see that. With the Mandalorian running over Bad Batch, can we get all 3 shows running at the same time and just have one, like they were doing with the CW stuff with the Arrowverse, where they'd have like, okay, if you want to see the rest of the story, you got to watch Arrow this week, then you got to watch the Flash this week, and
then Black Lightning, and then come back here.
I don't think we could keep up.
I don't think so.
I'm not sure that we could keep up.
We need to hire some more people to run the show. We need more hosts. We got too many shows to do.
That's right.
Wow. So the Bad Batch is done for another season. I don't think we have any sort of updates on when we can expect it to return. Probably not until 24. Maybe even longer. I hope not.
Yeah, there was a big gap between the last 2, right?
There really was. So that leaves us with The Mandalorian. We're about halfway through The Mandalorian now. We are going to be back tonight at our regular 6 p.m. Eastern time slot. Hank, you are going to take us through chapter, what is it, 21.
The mystery one until you watch it.
Yeah, exactly.
Wear purple.
That's right. And then we got Ahsoka coming up before the end of the year. So that's
rumored in September, actually, maybe end of the summer.
Be a lot of fun.
And we have I know it's for kids too, but there's that Tales of the Jedi.
The little kid thing. They showed off a bunch of little shorts. Coming up. Yeah. And of course, based on what we saw last week, if you haven't seen it, like I said before, the entire first season of Jedi Temple Challenge is on YouTube. You can go check that out if you want to see more of Keller and Beck. It's pretty cool. It's good. It's fun. But I think that's it for me. I don't know. Do you guys got anything you want to close on?
Notes.
You need to get back to work.
I gotta keep going.
All right, guys. We'll see you in about 4 hours, guys. Hopefully you'll come back and join us again tonight as we cover chapter 21 of The Mandalorian, The Pirate. If you haven't watched it, go watch it now. Come back and hang out with us tonight. Don't forget to bring your comments and your questions, because we love them all. And as Ray says, great show, guys. As always, intermission was a great touch. Well done. See you at 6. Thank you so much. We appreciate all of the support, and of course all the YouTube stuff there that you can go and click and check it out and help us out if you'd like to.
Check out the merch store too.
Absolutely. Where are we at now? 70.
We're over 70. I think we're closing in on 75.
Did we get our did we get the new one up?
We got 2 new ones up.
Fandomania, brother.
That's right. What you gonna do?
What you gonna do, brother? All right, guys. For Fandom Power, my name is Wes.
I'm Andy.
And I'm Hank.
And we will see you all tonight at 6. same batch. No,
New
there won't
batch
be no
time.
new batch
New
time.
batch time. New
Same batch
channel.
channel.
All right, bye for now,
that's right.
everybody.